Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Fine Disaster. This is Battlefield 1, and today's CTE update video, we're going to be covering the first batch of changes currently being trialed on Battlefield 1's brand new CTE. Not only, of course, are we going to be talking about the changes and what they entail, but what possible effects they could have and how they would change things up if introduced into the main game. The first segment of today's video is going to concentrate on all the additions and changes made in this build to the game this first CTE update, whereas the second part of this video will be more of an analytical nature where we talk about how sensible these changes are and how possibly they could affect the game if introduced into the main build of Battlefield 1. With that being said, then let's get straight into the first additions. We have now a ribbon system similar to what we had in Battlefield 4, Battlefield 3, and previous Battlefield titles. It functions on a 500 XP per ribbon basis. The ribbons are designed similar to what we had in Battlefield 4, supposedly around promoting teamwork. However, there is also a number of ribbons, at least I have found when testing and playing around in the CTE, that simply promote things like getting a number of kills in a round or getting a number of kills in a row. This will be a small source of XP and should make leveling slightly faster, but it is of course a very much requested feature by the community, and it's nice to see this finally in Battlefield 1. Elite codices is something most of the Battlefield community will recognize from Battlefield 4 as well, as this is basically weapon mastering. You have currently only 8 weapons. I'm assuming they will add a number of other weapons. Essentially, we should at the end of the game have pretty much all weapons available to master to get an elite codex. Now, the way this works is that these kills, the 500 kills, are counted from when this patch, if it goes live. That is to say, if you currently have 1,000 kills with a certain weapon, you will not receive the elite codex until you have gotten a further 500 kills with that weapon. Once you do, however, you will receive 25,000 XP, which should be a relatively nice chunk of XP to help level up. Map voting has also been introduced to this version of Battlefield 1. Now, it doesn't function like it did in Battlefield 4 through some external plugin in chat, but actually has a proper interface and functions very nicely. It gives you an option between 2 maps that you are currently not playing, thus limiting the amount of maps that you can choose of, however also avoiding that basically the same map or the same 2 maps on a server are played over and over again unless set so by the server admin. Now, we also have an improved squad and friend interface. Now, it looks nice. Whether or not it functions well yet, I can't really tell you because, of course, the CTE has a limited number of players in there, and I currently really haven't had time to mess around with it too much. It looks slightly better, slightly more organized, but of course, what matters to most of us is that we can finally reliably join our friends in squads. From my personal experience, I'm still having trouble when playing with friends, getting them in my squad, getting them in my party. I hope regarding these issues, there's not only been a visual update, but also a functional update. Moving on then to some changes that we've got. We've got vehicle selection now only being possible once the round actually starts. So now getting in the server as first person won't allow you to choose which vehicle, which tank, which airplane you want, but you'll have to wait until the round actually starts. That is to say, pretty much all players are there. Then the vehicles or cavalry classes or whatever else is available will be given free for all players to fight over fairly. You've also now got an increased class rank at 50. That is to say, your max class rank is no longer 10 now, but 50, which is a nice change. I personally approve of it because I like to see, based on my class rank, how much I play which class, which of course currently as of now I can't because pretty much all my classes are maxed out at class rank 10. This should allow for a bit more progression, and once you reach level 50, which should take you quite a bit of time, there's also a little reward for you once you get there. Another change, and a very welcome change in my opinion, is the reduction of the range that a cavalry saber can kill you in. Basically what they're trying to avoid is people getting killed from 3-4 meters by a cavalry just passing by. Essentially, now they actually have to hit you with their sword if they want to kill you. A much welcome change, frankly something that should have been fixed quite a long time ago. With that being said though, there's also an increased threshold to suppression, something I greatly approve of because frankly I don't think too much of suppression. I don't think it's necessarily fair or sensible mechanic simply because one person is using a different class to yours or simply because they start firing first. Why should I not be able to reliably return fire to them if my accuracy is superior to theirs? Of course, this is going to affect the relationship between LMG support players and snipers most. It's not to say that suppression is completely gone from the game, it's simply been reduced. Last but not least, regarding the changes not weapon related, is one nerf to gas grenades. Hallelujah! The duration of them has been decreased from 22 seconds to 15, It's not a major nerf, but should at least decrease the amount of gas on the battlefield simply because it doesn't last too long. Whether or not this is enough to rein in the gas grenades, because of course most maps which have some form of infantry clustering are completely gassed most of the time, we will have to wait and see. At least it's a step in the right direction. Regarding weapon changes, then we've got increased reload times to the autoloading 8.25. This is of course only a small increase. However, increased accuracy, reduced recoil, and decreased spread for the Selbstlader 1906. I don't frankly think this is enough to get this weapon from basically a black hole of not being used by anybody to something usable, but at least DICE is trying. We've got increased horizontal recoil to the Lewis optical and the M1909 optical by 10% while aiming down sight. Was this necessary? Probably not. We've also got increased damage, at least a slight increase to the damage of the Martini Henry during or in its sweet spot. I'm assuming this is to somewhat negate the effect of the Martini Henry basically falling out of use following the previous nerf to its damage. We've also got a reduced max damage from impact grenades, going from an 80 damage maximum down to 72. This should make them less annoying. However, I didn't find impact grenades to be too much of a problem in practice when playing Battlefield 1. Maybe you guys out there had a different experience. We've also got a couple of changes to the 12G automatic shotgun. Basically, they've balanced out all the variants against each other to make them a little bit more different, a little bit more distinguishable. We're not going to be going into too much detail there because it can get quite technical. We've also got a slight buff to the Model 10A slug variant, and we've increased the fire rate of the number 3 revolver from 119 to 138 while aiming down sight. Further increases then to post-reload delays for the Serigotti Mondragon and Selbstlader 1906, as well as the Bulldog, while decreasing the post-reload delay slightly of the Bodeo. I should add to this that we are talking here about values of roughly around 0.1 to 0.2 seconds, so nothing major there. However, still a small nerf to the actual reload times of most of these weapons. It's supposedly to make them more in line with the animations that they made for them. We've also gotten a slight increase to horizontal recoil, specifically of 14.3% of the Automatico Trench, Hellriegel M1909 Storm, Madsen Storm, MG15 Storm, and Bar Storm, trying to decrease their effectiveness, of course, at medium to long range, and a decrease in horizontal recoil for the autoloading Serigotti and M1907 SL, essentially all the close quarter medic rifles that I'm going to be covering in a video very soon. With that being said, then, what do I think of all these changes? Are they good additions, good changes, or has DICE really shot themselves in the foot here? Well, it depends on what changes we're talking about. The ribbons and the map voting are frankly just great additions, and I'm looking forward to them going into the proper version of Battlefield. When it comes to the elite codices, assuming that they extend these to all available weapons, I'm completely on board as well. The new improved interface, as I've already said, is a great addition as long as it also improves the functionality of it and not simply looks better. When it comes to the gas grenade, a great nerf. Whether or not it's enough is yet to be determined. Really, there's not enough people on the CTE currently to properly test that. Usually there's only one server that is somewhat populated. I have yet to see a completely full server on the CTE over here in Europe. Maybe it's just starting up. I'm assuming more players will be allowed to join the CTE over time as it progresses. The cavalry changes are of course much welcomed as well, and so are the suppression. These are small tweaks, but they should make, at least in my opinion, big differences to the actual gameplay, and most of these are going in the right direction of somewhat increasing skill and decreasing nuisance and annoyance from things like dying from a cavalry that clearly hasn't swung close enough to you. When it comes to the weapon balance attributes of this patch, on the other hand, I'm not quite as on board. While some of the nerfs to the less used weapons, the shotguns, and also the Selbstlader 1906 are fine in my opinion, I don't think they're going to make too much of an actual difference. I'm not quite so happy with the nerfs to the Automatico Trench, Hellriegel, M1909 Storm, Madsen Storm, MG15 Storm, and Bar Storm, simply because essentially what they are doing here is taking some of the most popular weapons out there and decreasing their power instead of increasing the power of weapons that are clearly inferior. Essentially what they're doing is taking all weapons and making them as bad as the worst weapon. Now that's not quite what they've done, but this is the balanced philosophy that up to now in Battlefield 1 they've followed, and in my opinion it's not the right one. I've said this before in videos and live commentaries. Essentially what you should aim to do, unless a weapon is absolutely broken, is to lift up the weapons that are underbalanced, not well balanced, too weak, to the level of those that are currently very competitive. The result is that you don't annoy players that are currently used to or adore the weapons that are currently at the top, but you delight them with new options available to them. Just making all weapons relatively annoying or bad or poor to use is not the solution and simply frustrates players. Especially that we've got now the third nerf to the Hellriegel and no buff, or at least proper buff, to the MP18, for example, which is one of the weapons in the assault class which could use a bit of loving. Also regarding the MGs, a number of the LMGs are simply not used because they're very poor. They don't put out enough damage even at medium range to compete with the medics or assaults. Now the solution to this is not taking the most widely used versions of these LMGs and simply making them worse by making them less usable at medium range, so that basically the only truly functioning LMGs are those set up on a bipod, which is a playstyle that, yes, while some players do enjoy, most, including myself, don't. The solution here would basically to strengthen the weapons and make them more competitive. However, DICE has chosen to basically nerf the entire Storm assortment of LMGs out there, and I'm clearly not in agreement with that. Well, I don't think the nerf, the 14.3% increase to horizontal recoil, is going to be too impactful on those guns. In my opinion, it shows the wrong approach to balancing, and DICE should kind of go back on this, or at least I hope they do, and take a different approach to balancing. Now that wraps it up pretty much for the changes in this patch. Let me know down below in the comments what you think of the current CTE build. Have you actually gotten into the CTE, or is this the first you've heard of it? Let me also know what key changes you would like to see in the coming CTE builds, things you think DICE needs to desperately address. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 1 video.